We are recording. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your patience. I know we're a few minutes late. These are busy, challenging times, but this is the City of Cottonwood Heights. It's Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. It's about 7:15. Again, I apologize for being a few minutes late. This is the business meeting of the city. I need to begin by reading a determination because this meeting is held via the internet. And as a result of that, we have about 125, 150 people joining us through this Zoom process. But I'll read the determination. Please bear with me. It states that pursuant to Utah Code Annotated 52-4-207-4, the city's mayor, as the chair of the city council, hereby determines that conducting the meeting of the city council on this date at an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. The World Health Organization, the President of the United States, the Governor of Utah, the Salt Lake County Mayor and Health Department have all recognized that a global pandemic exists related to the COVID-19 coronavirus. According to information from the state experts, Utah is currently in an acceleration phase which has the potential to overwhelm the state's healthcare system. Therefore, due to the state of emergency caused by the global pandemic, I find that conducting a meeting at an anchor location under the current state of public health emergency constitutes a risk to the health and safety of those who may be present or would be present at this location. Again, thank you, everyone, and I again appreciate your patience. We'll now have a Pledge of Allegiance, and I would ask Councilor Bracken if you would be willing to lead us in that pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Scott, for doing that. It's always a little bit weird to do it over the internet like that, but appreciate you leading us in that pledge. Now, next item on the agenda is citizen comments. We have a couple adjustments to make in tonight's citizen comments because we understand we have well over 100 people who have signed up to potentially make comments. Typically, as a city, we allow up to 3 minutes. But tonight, we're going to ask people to be understanding because we don't want to be here till the next day, to limit those comments to 90 seconds or a minute and a half. Okay? We're asking speakers to please state your name. We would ask that you please let us know where you reside if you're in Cottonwood Heights, although giving an address is not necessary. Although, again, we normally give 3 minutes, we'll allow a minute and a half. In order to allow as many people as possible to speak tonight, while at the same time being sensitive to everyone, we'd ask if you do just want to echo something that has already been said, you're welcome to refer to that. If you'd like to add additional comments, we would take written comments to our city recorder up until 6 p.m. tomorrow, and we'll add those comments to the city record and distribute them to the city council. Any questions from the council on that, Shane? I know you've given me some guidance and I summarized it quickly. Any thoughts or clarifications for our constituents as they comment?
I don't have anything to add. City ordinances normally allow 1 hour for no more than 1 hour for public comment. And so we're trying to, I think, bridge the gap between that and the fact that we have so many people that are interested in speaking.
Yeah. So again, I want to encourage those who are online who are going to participate in public comments to please understand and summarize your comments quickly because we have so many. With that being said, Paula, we're going to turn it over to you to invite people one at a time. Is that right? Tim, do you have something?
Yeah, Mayor, may I just read the names of the records that we have real quickly of those that submitted written comments that we will forward to the council
Oh, thank you. Yes.
as part of the
Please.
record? So here's the names: Matthew Stanley, Cottonwood Heights; Brenda Rhodes, Salt Lake City; Ken Gardner, Cottonwood Heights. I'm just going to give the names because you'll see where they're from. Ellen Burrell, Barbara Thompson, Jim Kitches, Shannon Cox, Tim Nab, Steve Isowitz, Michelle Engstrand, Joe Ryman, Kevin Fox, Sharon Kindle, Mike Ramos, Margarita Santini, and Gabrielle Nacy. Those are written comments that came in prior to 5 o'clock. We said that we would forward them to the council and they're admitted as part of the record. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Okay, let's get going. Paula?
Mayor, could I just make one additional comment?
Please.
Each speaker is allowed to speak one time only. So if written comments have been submitted as part of this this public comment section, why then verbal comments should not be made, and somebody should not attempt to make verbal comments twice.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And also for our audience, I think it's important for me to request and ask that you keep your comments civil. Again, we're not going to cut you off, but we discourage personal attacks. But we want you to feel that you can share your thoughts and your perspective. So again, ask you to be civil and a level of decorum, but share your thoughts and feelings, and we'll stay here until everyone has that opportunity and giving everybody 90 seconds. Okay, Paula?
But I have a question. Sorry to interrupt, Mayor.
Go ahead, Christine. Yeah, thank you.
If somebody who has submitted written comments, could they rescind the written comments and be allowed to speak instead?
I think if they're already signed up, they can take 90 seconds and then they can still submit written additional comments. Is that right, Tim?
I think the question is, there's some people that have got their hands up that have already submitted written comments that Tim read their name of.
No, the question was if somebody provided written comments and thought they had the ability to speak also. Now we just told them they cannot speak because they submitted written comments. Can they rescind the written comments that were submitted to the city so they can speak?
I would think that would be more than appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. I just thought that would be helpful clarification.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're here to allow people to speak if they want to do that. And if they choose to, as long as they've signed up and they're online with us, they've already basically committed or represented the desire to be online with us. So I'm okay with that.
Mayor, may I say one other thing? I apologize. Our Zoom meeting, I just became aware of this. I was just shared. Our Zoom meeting goes up, attendance goes up to 100 participants that can speak. I didn't realize that we were capped at that with the program that we have. So there may be some people that are not able to get in beyond the 100 that we have. If that's the case, please submit your comments prior to tomorrow night by 6. We'll look at the process to expand that before the next meeting. I was not aware of that, but I just wanted to make that clear in case people are trying to get on and can't. I was not aware that we were capped at 100 until I just found out. So
I echo that. My daughter just texted me that as well. She's 13, was very interested in the discussion. So there should be a way that we can add people, I thought, on the fly and up it to 1,000. Are you really looking into it?
yeah, I'll look into it, but it's probably not going to be for this meeting. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize that we were at that cap.
Yeah, I understood the limits were quite high, so I'm surprised as well. So that's unfortunate, very unfortunate, but I think we need to proceed and allow those who are online to speak, and those who are not online, we're going to apologize. I guess city ordinance allows up to an hour of comments. We're going to obviously do much more than that, but encourage anyone who has comments that they don't have a chance to do it online with us to submit those in writing, and we will work through the challenges of these numbers as we move forward in our next meeting. Paula, do we have someone who's ready to speak to us?
Yes, Mayor. Alan Burrell is now able to speak.
Yeah, Ellen Burrell. Welcome, Ellen.
Welcome, Ellen.
Need to unmute.
She's muted. I've asked her. Oh, there we go.
And Paula, if you would mute yourself while they speak, thank you.
So my name is Ellen Burrell, and as a Cottonwood Heights homeowner, I am requesting that before any further parking lot funding and planning is advanced and confirmed, that a cost analysis be made comparing the implementation of a summer-fall green trolley shuttle service, connecting recreationalists from existing underutilized strip mall parking lot spaces on Fort Union Boulevard to trailheads in Ferguson, Hughes Canyon, and other Big and Little Cottonwood Canyon trails. This would considerably contrast the building cost, annual maintenance, and environmental degradation of the additional asphalted parking lot currently being considered in future parking lots at trailheads. It also achieves what Cottonwood Heights has stated in all of their master plans, their Cottonwood Heights City Master Plan, their 2016 Fort Union Master Plan, and their 2019 Wasatch Boulevard Master Plan. They all state, along with Salt Lake County's Wasatch Master Plan, for more alternative transportation options and support for clean air. It is a poor choice to not use transit, because transit achieves the goals stated in our plans. Asphalt, on the other hand, contributes to, with its car exhaust, the roads, the parking lots, and more cars in our neighborhoods. This contributes to higher summer temperatures along with light air and noise pollution, which decreases property values. Contrastingly, preserving the greenery sequesters carbon dioxide into the air, filters pollutants from the air, and cools summer temperatures. Just let me finish since I didn't unmute quickly. So in concluding, I have definitive ideas for how this could be done. I'd like to talk to the council more about it. And this would not only be better for air quality, safety, and convenience, but it would also employ trolley drivers. This is how I would like my tax dollars spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Paula, next person.
Yes, next person is Raven James.
Hi, I'd like to cede my time to my mother, Tiffany James.
My name is Tiffany James, and I'm a resident of Cottonwood Heights. We want to request tonight that you take the following actions, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and City Manager. We want these actions to be taken to remedy the atrocities that were committed by your police chief and officers on Sunday, August 2nd. These things happened in Mill Hollow against a group of peaceful protesters, and specifically my family, the James family. It was clearly orchestrated and targeted with the express intention of creating fear and intimidation, and there was full knowledge it could incite violence that could then be used by officers to exercise a full display of police brutality, which they did. These actions that we're requesting are supported by the countless state legislators, community leaders, community members of Cottonwood Heights, and neighbors, as well as other people across the nation, who are also requesting that these actions be taken. You need to remember that the nation's eyes are on us, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. First, we'd like you to dismiss all charges against every protester who was intimidated, beaten, and arrested. These charges, on top of the beatings and physical and emotional trauma, are placing undue financial distress and emotional distress in all these people's lives. 2, immediately initiate a third-party investigation that leads to recommended policy and training reform within 90 days for the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. 3, we would like a full suspension of Police Chief Russo and any officer identified in the videos, which there are copious amounts identified, for spraying pepper spray or beating protesters until this investigation is complete and the recommendations are implemented. 4, we would like a statement issued to the media to correct Police Chief Russo's blatant statements that are unsubstantiated that protesters were carrying spray guns filled with urine and pepper spray and spraying officers. This is not true. There are a number of other things that have been stated. You as a body can take these actions. You have this authority over the police department and your police chief. Nothing less is acceptable given the graveness of the situation and the risks to every citizen's personal safety and health in our city, men, women, and children, if you allow this behavior to continue. My son has already lost his life. I think you owe it to your citizens to do something now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Next.
Sorry, Mayor. Next, I have.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt? I see 2 Robbie Russos on the screen here. Robbie, I don't know how, Chief, I don't know how somebody got your name, but somebody's impersonating you because it's a female. I don't know if you've divided, but I
don't know.
I don't know who that is or why they're on the screen, but.
They were trying to log in and they didn't have a link, and that was the link that was sent to me. So she used that and it came up as me.
Is that taking a spot from our 100 that got cut off?
She's been removed. Okay. Okay, so next I have Kimi Stojak.
Go ahead, Kimmy.
This is right out of the Utah Stories publication back in February of 2014. Jim Winder stated Cottonwood Heights residents were not involved in the public process in the creation of the police department. If any resident of Cottonwood Heights would have known how much more it would cost them and what they would lose by breaking from the county police department, they would have never gone for the plan. The city voted as the previous mayor and the chief wanted. Without voter input, CHPD was formed. It is the duty of every police chief anywhere to maintain a high level of transparency, he stated. Transparency, something we have been asking for since 2011, something to this day that Councilwoman Bruce is still asking for. The taxpayer should be made aware in 2018, according to public record, our chief made $193,120.01. That is 184.7% higher than average pay for city employees, 203.6% higher than the national average for government employees. Officers, higher than average pay for city employees, 69.7%, 95.8%, 85.2%. Officers higher than the national average for government employees, over 95.8%, 108.7%, 81.0%, 97.4%. This is only a handful of officers, and public record had up to 2018 available. So 2 years later, how much are they really making? Is this the reason our sidewalks and roads are not being repaired and they continue to decay? And you want to raise taxes for storm drain repairs? Mayor Peterson and council members, our police department needs a reboot, starting with bloated salaries all the way down to de-escalation. Councilwoman Bruce, as a tax-paying citizen, I want to thank you for standing up for the rest of us that have been ignored for too long. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimmy. Next, Paula.
Yes, sir. Next we have Ainsley Munch.
Hi, my name is Ainsley French. I live 1 street away from City Hall. I am in Scott Bracken's district. I demand that a full investigation take place of the events on Sunday where peaceful protesters were outnumbered, beaten, maced, tasered, and arrested for the crime of memorializing the life of a 19-year-old who died at the hands of an off-duty Cottonwood Heights police officer. I find it repulsive that my tax money paid for the materials and officers used to brutalize and kill my neighbors. I demand a full investigation take place of the events on Monday when an unarmed group of protesters at Butler Middle School was met with a SWAT team, whereas the armed white nationalists had policemen guarding and standing with them. On the other side of the street, those calling for an end to police violence were spewed with the exhaust of cars speeding past, nearly hitting one protester. Most importantly, I demand that the budget of the Cottonwood Heights Police Department is slashed, if not completely defunded. There is no reason why the police of this tiny suburb needs $6 million that, again, is funded through taxpayer money. My taxpayer money. This is not a police reform issue. Cottonwood Heights police have an enormous amount of training. The officer who killed Zane James even led some of those trainings, which is proof that de-escalation training or other police reform, while good, doesn't solve the problem. This is an issue of investing in fear and violence to control rather than pursuing options that benefit the community, like hiring social workers, addiction counselors, or funding after-school programs or daycares, which stops crime before it happens, has better outcomes for all parties involved, and sure costs less than $6 million. By continuing to fund the police department, we are supporting their actions in the brutalization and incarceration of our community. I love Cottonwood Heights. I think living here is wonderful, but I'm ashamed of our police department and city council who choose to invest in violence rather than the tolerance and love of their neighbors.
Thank you, Ainsley. Appreciate your comments. Next, Paula.
Next, we have Megan Bolthorpe.
Welcome, Megan.
Hey, my name is Bodie Bolthorpe. I'm the husband. I had to use her email address. I don't email.
We first need to understand. That's okay.
Okay, so I live on the street where this good vibe and peaceful protest occurred. So minus my time for military and religious service, I had been a resident of Cottonwood Heights for 34 years. I actively serve in the Cottonwood Heights Radio Club. What I am getting at is service to my neighbors, community, and country is a big part of my life. What I witnessed Sunday and Monday night was an attack on that. I arrived to a scene of chaos on Sunday, just up from my house, to witness an angry mob shouting vile language and members of that mob physically attacking police officers. It was not what I wanted to see in my neighborhood. To later find out that a city council member played an active role in this peaceful, good vibe protest made me sick. This is a representative of our city who I saw in her own video play an active role in the madness. This city council member does not represent me and has proven/demonstrated poor judgment in her efforts to serve this community and used her position/status of power to try and persuade a resident to allow/justify her illegal trespassing. I believe there should be some negative consequences for these actions. On Monday night, I held an American flag with a thin blue and red line in the middle of it at the city center in show of support of CHPD upholding the law in my neighborhood. An opposing group gathered and I heard nothing but hate and foul language attacking those values that have been a big part of my life and our peaceful community. And I want to thank our city council member for those good vibes and that peaceful experience. God bless our CHPD and their families.
Thank you, Mr. Bolthorpe. Next, Paula.
Yes, sir. Next, we have Nikki Bodine.
Hi, yeah, I would just like to echo what the James family said before and what Ainsley said. I wholeheartedly agree with everything. I saw the horrifying footage of City Councilwoman Ms. Bruce along with other innocent bystanders. It's completely unacceptable to treat other humans like this. Whether you agree with what they're protesting or not, it's completely unacceptable. I don't feel safe and my children don't feel safe here either. I would like to urge the mayor to adopt the policies that Mayor Mendenhall has recently put in place for the Salt Lake Police Department. Chief Russo, you and your officers are supposed to serve and protect, not fly off the handle with short fuses. You should be held to higher standards and you should react to intense situations better than that. and by de-escalating it and not escalating and harming innocent bystanders. The police came in hot and ready to pick a fight, fear and intimidation, incite violence. I just, again, would like to echo what the James family and Ainsley said earlier, and that we need change, and it's got to happen now. I'm finished.
Thank you, Nikki. Paula, next person, please.
Apologize, Mayor. There's so many things going on at the same time here, so give me
That's
just a
okay.
second.
Appreciate your trying to keep us organized.
Next, we have Megan Skiles. Thank you. It's not allowing me to have her speak, so give me just a second. Okay, it says the system saying that Megan Skiles is using an older version of Zoom, and therefore I'm not able to allow her to speak. I apologize for that.
We apologize.
So I'll
Go ahead and do the next person. We apologize to Megan. Yeah.
Okay. Next one, we have Karma Fry.
Hi, my name's Karma. I've been a resident of Cottonwood Heights for 16 years. I attended the protest on Sunday. It is completely untrue that it was not peaceful. It was absolutely peaceful until the officers arrived, but I don't want to go into that because the footage is available. What I want to talk about is how clear it was that it was our message that the officers didn't like. We are protesting police brutality, and police brutality is clearly a problem in Cottonwood Heights. And there is a national outcry because of the severity of the consequences of police culture and of qualified immunity. I understand that some of the officers might feel a little defensive because we have footage of officers who beat protesters shooting unarmed Black teenagers in 2017 who are lying on the ground with their hands in the air. And there are officers that were at the protest beating people who have anti-Black Lives Matter Facebook posts. And the way that they protected the militia while they were attacked us for having pinwheels clarifies the point that it is our message that they had a problem with and not the protest. We are very aware of our legal rights as protesters. It is absolutely legal to protest in the streets. We did not incite violence, as has been said on the news multiple times. And I second the calls for action that Tiffany James stated, and I echo the call to implement the policies that Mayor Mendenhall has put into place. And I implore you to take this seriously and understand that the police killings of people like George Floyd, that's not something that happens so far away. This is happening in our own community. And if police officers treat affluent middle-aged white men the way that they treated Zane's father, I am disturbed to think of how they might treat Black and brown community members of ours when there are no cameras rolling. So I implore you to take this seriously and make meaningful change for police reform.
Thank you, Karma.
Yes, Mayor. Next, we have Christy Morrison.
Go ahead, Christy.
She's mute. Oh, there we go.
Go ahead, Christy. Christy, can you hear us? Go right ahead.
We can't hear Christie's.
Paula, we're going to have to move the next person, and maybe Christy can come back on in a minute.
Yes, sir. So let's see. Next, we have Erica Kazi.
Go ahead, Erica. She's muted, so you need to unmute her.
Okay, here we go.
Hi, I'm here.
Go ahead, Erica.
Hi. So just as a background, so I live in Cottonwood Heights and I have for the past year now, and I've been looking into buying a house. So I definitely want this to become my home. I'm a younger home buyer. I worked in wilderness therapy for years. So I worked with aggravated teenagers and am highly trained in de-escalation techniques. And in what I saw on Sunday, I did not see any of those techniques being used by police. What I'd like to see is a conversation instead of things being brushed off police's shoulders. Unfortunately, I am devastated that people were afraid on Sunday. That being said, I was afraid yesterday when I saw a car of 5 militiamen carrying rifles and shouting from the back of their pickup truck. I am a small woman, and I found that extremely intimidating. I had a friend call the police and had no response from the police. Now, how is it fair that some people their fear is taken seriously when mine wasn't? That being said, I believe that what we could do as a community is validate that police do work very hard and that there are methods for policing that can be changed in order to better protect the police and better protect members of the community. This would look like more de-escalation training, more accountability for police, and a citizens review board to hold police accountable for their actions. I believe that police do work very hard to protect the community. However, over time, they have developed less than ideal approaches, including unnecessary force, prejudice, and siding with certain members of the community. This is happening around the country, and unfortunately is happening in our beautiful town or city. I think that we should take a step back and take a look at this with a more critical eye. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Is Christy Morrison back on, or that didn't work?
Sorry, Mayor. I'm going to try Megan Skiles again and see if
Okay.
I can't do that. Sorry. So Slade Dalen is the next person.
All right, can you hear me? Hello?
Go ahead. We hear you.
All right. So I was there on Sunday. The rhetoric that had the protesters just been on the sidewalk, none of this would have happened, was false. I saw a man carrying an umbrella standing on the sidewalk as a cop charged after him, and then 5 other officers gave chase also. This man was on the sidewalk being told to drop his weapon. He had an umbrella. Yesterday, saw a ton of militia out with weapons, actual weapons, guns, and that was fine. Now, there's nothing wrong with the Second Amendment. Everyone's entitled to it, but there is a problem when you let some groups, exercise their rights and some don't. Now, at this point, you're using the police to enforce, your political views, and all that does is further a divide. Now there's people in the Cottonwood Heights Facebook group saying they're going to start, committing these citizens arrests and taking people out on their own. Listen, I practice the Second Amendment also. I don't carry when I'm in the city because I feel safe here. I no longer do. I will now be carrying in my own town, afraid that I'll be attacked by someone in my community because of the false rhetoric that the police are pushing about these protests. Do better before things get worse. I rescind my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skiles.
Mayor, next we have Tim Hallback.
Welcome, Tim.
You guys.
Unmute, Tim.
Here we go. How's that?
We can hear you.
Come on. Be good to me, baby. Am I still muted?
You're
No?
good. Talk.
Oh, you're good. Okay, cool. All right. So I'll, normally I do my, science and other stuff and I finish for some jokes, but tonight's looking pretty serious. So I'm going to start with the jokes instead. I'm not saying our mayor is old, but his blood type is discontinued. I got to look at his birth certificate the other day, and his birth date is actually XXIIV. I'm not sure what that means, but yeah, anyway. Oh, and I came across an old email, handwritten letters from Moses. He said he needs his hammer and chisels back. He's got this big project coming up. So he needs his equipment if you can take care of that. So I wasn't there on Sunday, so I'm not going to comment on that. I would say, though, preemptively dropping charges. But again, I shouldn't speak about that because I wasn't there. I was there yesterday for about 3 hours. A very important thing to note of that, the protesters that had put up the initial message on Facebook, that was not Black Lives Matter. That was Mama and Papa Panthers, I believe, which is a very different organization. Black Lives Matter locally is in northern Utah is led by a young woman named Lexi Scott, I believe her name is. She is very anti-violent. She is very anti-vulgarity. She's a very positive person, very positive message for the Black Lives Matter movement. And so we actually got to witness quite the argument between the genuine Black Lives Matter person who was there and this Panthers person who was there. And so that was very eye-opening. I would like to say thank you to the police guys, the police forces that were there. I think there were at least 4 or 5 different agencies that were there that showed enormous restraint. I would say I'd never seen so many people with so many weapons in a concentrated area and nothing erupted. That was pretty special. I know a lot of people I talk to don't realize the open carry laws in Utah and how active they are and what you can actually carry and that kind of thing. So it was pretty scary for a lot of people who are not accustomed to that.
Mayor, time is up on that one. I don't know if you heard.
Tim,
That's it.
I did.
Let's keep this short. See you guys.
All right.
Oh,
Tim,
wait,
thank
one
you.
last thing. Right here. This is for Dan Bartlett. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Next,
Okay,
Paula.
we have Jordan Wall, sorry, Jordan Wall.
Okay, welcome, Jordan.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you very much. I was listening to your guys' previous meeting earlier today, and I had a comment from Tally Bruce where she said that they've had this protest in 8 or 9 cities, and I'd like to know where those cities are at because I'm pretty certain that they've not made any Black Lives Matter protests in the suburbs in Salt Lake that I've been aware of. Can you answer that question, Commissioner? What cities were those?
Well, we're not going to respond to public comment. That's kind of a standard procedure we have. But we can do that later. But please.
I bet she can't answer that, but that's okay because I don't think they've happened. What I'm hearing is a bunch of nonsense. This happened right in front of my parents' house. We've got the video. If this was such a peaceful protest, why were they playing F the Police by NWA? That was the message. They were taunting the police. That was the music you were playing going up and down the streets. And the reason why the police had to try to get you guys in the protest of Black Lives Matter is because you would not get out of the streets. You were obstructing the streets and the egress, which that's against the law. And you guys saying differently in these previous messages is completely false. And I just don't understand it. And I represent the owners of the office buildings at Mill Rock Park, at Cottonwood Corporate Center, at Cornerstone. And these guys are worth billions of dollars, altogether over $100 billion. And Tally Bruce, they know your name. And I want to let you know, they're not happy with you. And if you think that you're going to be in that chair very long, I can tell you very, very concrete, that seat's going to be up very soon when you come up. Very powerful people are not happy with you. That's my time.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Paula, next.
Sir, next we have Mr. Ed Schwartz.
Welcome back, Ed.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Ed. Go right ahead.
Great. Once again, it's time for us to get real. When the police become aggressive, it is analogous to throwing fuel on the fire. People get upset, understandably so. When they're being peaceful and trying to bring awareness and pay tribute to a young man that was unjustly murdered by the CHPD. This baiting by police can quickly lead to the situation getting out of control. This completely avoidable situation was created and engineered by the CHPD. If our police department had proper training on how to handle nonviolent situations, they could have avoided everything that occurred. The Cottonwood Heights Police Department, under the leadership of Chief Robbie Russo, have acted in a manner that goes against the grain of the department and against their vow as officers to serve and protect their community. The police department should be there to serve and protect and help create, rather than destroy, a peaceful and harmonious environment. The accountability for this action lies with Chief Robbie Russo. The Cottonwood Heights Police Department and Chief Russo have crossed the line with the public, and they've shown what they are capable of doing when the rubber meets the road. The police action should have been simple. Let the group complete their walk, and if the police must, then issue the proper citations for walking on a quiet street on a Sunday afternoon. The action.
Ed, thank you. Your 90 seconds.
Well, let me finish. I'm almost done, Mayor. Please.
Well, okay, be quick. We have 100 people online.
I understand. The action, aggression, and violence displayed by the officers was beyond belief, and accountability for this lies with the officers involved and their leader, Chief Robbie Russo. It is time for the mayor to speak out along with other members of the city council and immediately suspend Chief Robbie Russo until the proper independent investigation is completed.
All right, thank you, Ed. Appreciate your comment.
Yes, sir. We have one more person that is raising their hand. Give me just a sec. Michael Albrecht. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing anyone's name.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mike.
This is Michael Albrecht. I live in Cottonwood Heights since 2007. Since 2018, I had to call the police department for several medical assist situations and related issues. I will forever be thankful to those officers who responded professionally and with care. I'm in their debt, and they deserve better. They deserve that those officers are addressed who do not follow their high standards and morals and work disconnected from their own political views and do not work in an abuse of power to force their political views on the residents. The city of Cottonwood Heights did not want a confidential and independent internal affairs process that can address grievances coming from residents. The current structures allow for residents to be intimidated, threatened, slandered, having evidence omitted to obtain the desired outcome with the DA office that is headed by a personal friend of Chief Russo, according to District Attorney Gill himself in 2012 in front of witnesses that are willing to testify here. The events should be investigated by the FBI because District Attorney Gill has a conflict of interest and the Attorney General is allied with the political parties that the officers represented who engaged in the retaliatory public beating of ordinary citizens and who is publicly supported by Chief Russo. I witnessed a 20-year-old rookie officer express his personal political views when initiating the out-of-control mess on Sunday, and I'm available as a witness to that. He was on a mission, and that mission was not protecting the Constitution of the United States or the right to protest. Officers even arrested the only person who actively tried to de-escalate, the father whose son was shot by an off-duty officer. The same officer who was cleared by the district attorney who expressed a personal friendship with Chief Russo. I request that the city of Cottonwood Heights establishes an independent internal affairs process by September 1st, 2020.
Michael, thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. Your time is up.
Have Weston Wall.
Hello. I've been a Cottonwood Heights resident for the last 4 years, and I happened to go to the peaceful dance protest this past Sunday. The Cottonwood Heights Police Department were very quick to block our path and proceeded to escalate the event to violence. There was actually no reason in my mind that the police needed to be there, let alone bring their deeply abusive bully mentality and instigate violence at a protest against police violence. Cottonwood Heights Police Department strongly reinforced why it is we are marching. They came looking for a fight, and they were very successful at starting one. I feel we need to reallocate funds away from this obviously corrupt and abusive gang of thugs hiding behind their badges. I also attended another protest locally, so there were protests locally besides this one, where the police stayed far away, blocking off roads in a mile radius to keep us safe. Completely opposite of what the Cottonwood Heights Police Department did. F the Police by NWA was played when the Cottonwood Heights Police Department showed up flexing their muscle on Sunday. Then it went back to a more light and fun dance music. What we need is change, and what we don't need is one Robbie Russo. You're obviously a proven failure as a leader in Cottonwood Heights, and there's plenty of instances, judges and other people that have spoken against you. Dan Bartlett, Lieutenant Dan Bartlett, I watched you lie on television at that the protesters started the confrontation. Your aggressive arrogance was clearly on display as you wailed as you walked towards the protesters. Chris McHugh, your actions on Sunday were disgusting, hiding behind a can of pepper spray and arrogance. You all lead as examples of violence, privilege, and corruption on Sunday. You are unnecessary and unwanted in our neighborhood. I also support Tally Bruce, and thank you for supporting the cause against police brutality, being there on Sunday. Thank you.
Thanks, Weston.
I have Amy Mills.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm a resident of Cotton. I'm very concerned about the police department's response to and behavior toward the peaceful protesters on Sunday, August 2nd. I request a third-party independent review of the police department's tactics deployed and its employees' behaviors during this protest. This review I would like conducted to determine if policy, procedure, and laws were followed, as well as determine if this is a case of deliberate obstruction and/or incompetence. I ask that this review be expedited to begin no later than August 15th. In conjunction, I ask that this review include an assessment of and comparison to the protest that occurred on Monday, August 3rd, which had a very different response. The double standard is disgusting. Further, I request that the organization selected to conduct this review be chosen by people other than Cottonwood Heights employees, and I ask that the Cottonwood Heights Police Department pay for this. I also request that the CHPD undergo continual, not one-time, but annual diversity and inclusion training and annual de-escalation training, beginning before the end of 2020. And I request existing police budget be used to fund this training. Patience and empathy create strong communities, not aggression and double standards. I do not feel safe at these events because of how the police are representing one side and not all sides. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it. Paula, next.
Sorry. Just a second, Mayor. Trying to, Matt was on my computer and he moved people around. Danielle Eckstein.
Danielle, are you there?
Can you hear me?
There you go. We hear you. Go right ahead.
I'm Danielle. I grew up in Cottonwood Heights, and I still live here. My parents live here. I have all of my friends' parents who pay taxes here, and I want to start by saying that I pulled all these numbers from the Cottonwood Heights annual operating capital budget report for 2019 and 2020 fiscal year. So property tax contributes to upwards of $8 million of the city's budget, and 40% of the city's revenue comes from our property tax. 48% is spent on public safety, and you have 37.5 officers that get $6 million, and I don't understand why you need $6 million to fund a 37 officer operation. So we need to have a serious discussion about the redundant problem that is police brutality and about who can be a cop, the training required to be a cop, as well as the proper discipline for those who abuse their power, and about demilitarizing the force as a whole. We need to reallocate these funds towards community-oriented services. And no, it's not like defunding every department instantly. It's about a strategic process of reallocating the funds, resources, and defunding taking the responsibility away from the police force and towards community-based models of safety, support, and so we cannot expect Conwood Heights Police Department to take on all of this responsibility. On August 22nd, they violently responded to a peaceful protest, which was protesting exactly what they went there to do: tasing, gassing, beating, and arresting the family and friends of the young man you murdered. That couldn't prove my point better. Terrorism is defined as any willful act calculated to endanger the lives of members of the public, and that's exactly what we saw from this police force Sunday. So I demand that Officer Russo is terminated and that you take away all of the charges from everyone who was arrested that day.
Daniel, thank you.
And
Thank you, Daniel. Your time is passed. Appreciate your patience and understanding.
Griffin Munson.
Again, just a reminder, everybody, it's 90.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Griffin.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'd first like to acknowledge your dismissiveness towards anyone who has anything to say against your militarized police force that you use towards your agenda and your goals. It's pretty fantastic. Gotta love that. Second off, as a person who was there on Sunday, I would like to address the fact that Robbie Russo and his terrorism police force went and attacked the family of the person that they had already shot and killed 2 years prior first. These two were the first people that they were attacked, pepper sprayed, and beat with batons. This is sickening and disgusting. I do not know what kind of a world we live in where you think it's okay to kill someone's son and then attack the remaining living members of their family. We're in America. This is unacceptable. Mr. Mayor, I demand for the termination of Officer Robbie Russo and for the dismantle of the CHPD. We do not need them. We do not want them. They're completely unnecessary and they need to go. I resign the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Griffin. Appreciate your comments.
Okay, next we have, let me go down here. Oh, must have passed them. Christy Morrison.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Thank you, Christy. We can.
Okay, great. Okay, so my name is Christy Morrison. I live in Cottonwood Heights, and I just want to say that I support the Cottonwood Heights police presence in my neighborhood of Mill Hollow this past Sunday during the protest. I'm very upset and concerned that our own city councilwoman, Tally Bruce, who was elected to represent our very neighborhood, encouraged vulgar and volatile activity on our streets. I observed her from her own Facebook post physically intervening when the police were trying to control a crowd that was not peaceful. Early on, before they even started their walk and dance down the street, they were yelling at all my neighbors, and they were the ones trying to intimidate our neighborhood. Tally Bruce kept trying to use her position as a city councilwoman to interfere with arrests and official police interaction, which made the activity even more dangerous. She made false claims that she was hit in the neck when the police were continually asking her to get out of the way and pushing her back. That was what they did. Tally Bruce is not representing me. She is rallying people outside of our city for her own personal agenda, not the agenda of the majority of her district. That is not what she was elected to do. She has forgotten who she is supposed to represent. When people commit crimes in our community, I fully support the police to do what they need to do to make my neighborhood safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Next, Paula.
Next, we have Jake Jensen.
Thank you, Council. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go right ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity for getting to speak before you guys this evening. I've lived in Cottonwood Heights and the surrounding neighborhoods for most of my life. As an adult, I've had the privilege of raising my children here in the same community as I spent my childhood. This is my home. For the last 20 years of my life, I made my living by producing large-scale events that involve keeping thousands of people from different diverse backgrounds safe. Through this career, I've been well educated on proven policies and tactics that are needed when emotions are high. In regards to what took place with the Cottonwood Heights Police Department Sunday night, I've asked myself over and over again, am I not seeing something? Am I missing something? Sadly, the reality is this. We publicly witnessed the Cottonwood Heights Police Department, under the direction of its embattled leadership, violently beat my neighbors and youth in my community who were peacefully walking, dancing, and chanting down a public street. This protest, by all standards and precedents, would be professionally judged as a peaceful protest. The police response should have matched the level of necessity that it warranted. Regrettably, a decision was made to respond with undue violence and physically engage them. The decision was made to skip over industry standard de-escalation practices from start to finish. I find it curious that unarmed protesters Sunday were met with such brutal force under the justification that they were all disturbing a nice neighborhood street. Well, last night, a well-armed, self-appointed militia of men were allowed to roam our neighborhood streets with assault rifles and tactical gear. These men were not just in the group in front of City Hall, they were patrolling streets, taking photos of citizens, writing down license plates, including my own, as I walked my son to football practice across at Cottonwood Heights Rec Center. On any other day,
Jake, I'm sorry. Jake, I'm going to have to cut you off. I'm sorry. We appreciate your comments. You're past your time. I apologize, but we have another 7,500 people to comment. Thank you. Paula, next.
Emma Roberts.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, Emma. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. First, I'd like to say that the people who have made comments for the police department have only been disgruntled because they feel that their property has been affected or their quote unquote streets, when in fact that they don't care about other people's lives. And I'd also like to say, because of the unprovoked and violent actions exhibited by the Cottonwood Heights Police Department on Sunday, it's clear that the force is so full of hatred and prejudice that they immediately silenced us. This march was peaceful, it was joyful, and it's what community looks like. We were exercising our First Amendment rights, much like the armed hate groups were exercising their Second Amendment rights on Monday, which the police had no issue with. And to address what Police Chief Russo said to the Salt Lake Tribune, he said, quote, "I will not be like the other districts and allow outsiders to wreak havoc and spread fear." I'd like to ask, what outsiders? Your community was out there. I was out there. We are all Utah citizens. I serve you your frozen chai every day. Councilwoman Tally Bruce is very much a citizen and a community member, and your police force punched her in the throat. You and your police force wreaked havoc, and you are the ones that caused fear. I'm disgusted by your actions and of who you choose to support. I yield my time.
Thank you, Emma. Next, Paula.
Brian Kessler.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Brian Casteller. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Go ahead, Brian.
I have an interesting perspective. I live adjacent to the Mill Hollow Park, so I actually was there for the entire event from setup to finish. And I would agree that the event did begin peaceful. It was well organized and thoughtful. What I did witness, though, was a group mostly imported, not from our neighborhood. So these did not appear to be my neighbors because I didn't recognize hardly anybody. What I was concerned about is the safety of my family, so I stayed on the perimeter, listened, and learned. What was interesting to me is as the group progressed down the street and as it turned violent and as they blocked traffic, the group started throwing things and hurled vile language towards me, my daughter, and my wife, and made us feel incredibly unsafe. I was very proud of our police officers. I was very proud of the way they handled themselves, the restraint they showed. They tried to intimidate and provoke us as neighbors and the police. So I would say to Tally Bruce, do not import protesters into my backyard to make my family unsafe. That's not why you were elected to represent us as your constituents. That's my time.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Next, Paula.
I don't have anyone else raising their hands, sir. Oh, wait, it's coming.
Yeah, I was gonna
It's
say,
just a
wow.
second. Yeah. Let's see. Anna McNamara.
Hi.
Welcome, Anna.
First, I want to echo what Ellen said at the beginning. This is a city and a county that's master plan includes preservation of our lands. So I want to ask you to please use the plan that Ellen has to preserve our land around us and not expand Wasatch and look at alternative methods of transportation. But part of that preservation is preserving the lives of human beings and the welfare of human beings. I was part of the march that was led down the road on Sunday. I was part of the protest yesterday, and I was part of the protest that was outside of City Hall today, and I will keep coming out. In Cottonwood Heights, we have this illusion that we're a small suburb and nothing crazy happens here. That's only dystopian fiction novels. These things don't happen in real life. But the culture of power and the abuse of power is alive and real in our police force. They showed it on Sunday when they didn't stop traffic until after the protesters were on the road. Then they pushed us onto the sidewalk, but it's hard to get 150 on the sidewalk. It takes a little bit. And so about 200 meters after that, they blocked us again. It's a format that is called kettling, and it's used by officers to incite fear, confusion, and to create a system where officers can turn a peaceful march where people have pinwheels in their hair and squirt guns in their hands to stay cool into something violent. And that's exactly what the officers came prepared for. They came there to incite violence, to harm residents. And while residents tried to flee, I myself even pulled a girl out of the street because I didn't want her to get hurt. I pulled her back as she was watching her brother get punched in the face and tased. I pulled her out of the road because I was afraid of the cops, and I still am.
All right,
Yesterday
Anna,
at the protest,
Anna, thank you very much. Your time is up. We appreciate your comments. I'm sorry to cut people off, but we committed to 90 seconds for everyone. So appreciate people's understanding. I think the message was still met. Paula, next.
Mayor, I CS initials. I don't know who this person is because they are not identifying themselves. So allow them to speak and tell
They
their
can-
name.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I am actually terrified to state my name because I am terrified of being targeted by Cottonwood Heights police. But I am a resident in Cottonwood Heights, and I did attend the protest on Sunday. So no, Tally did not import protesters, and it was peaceful. Thank you, Tally, for being my representative. I really do appreciate that. Because as I mentioned, I am terrified of Cottonwood Heights police. I witnessed them beat, pepper spray, and arrest peaceful protesters. They broke the law, the police did. I'm still terrified from this event. It was premeditated by Chief Russo himself. Lieutenant Dan Bartlett has posted racist comments on his Facebook page. As public servants, the police should not have biased views because they serve everyone. I demand that Chief Russo be fired immediately, as well as Dan Bartlett and Officer McHugh for their corruption. Our city is not safe with any of them. I stand by the James family as well, and I ask for this to happen immediately. I yield my time.
Thank you. Paula, next.
Sean Ferry.
Next
Can you hear
person,
me?
Paula. Oh yeah, Sean, go right ahead.
Yes, hi, Sean Ferry. Thank you. I appreciate it. I am a Cottonwood Heights resident. I live in District 3, Miss Bruce's district. I have lived here for over 40 years. And I am also a taxpayer. And I am very pleased with our police department. I have met many of the police officers, Chief Russo included. They have done a fantastic job. I have come here and spoke for them before. I will continue to do so. It's unfortunate that we've had to continue to do this over and over and over for the past 3 years. And this seems to be a personal vendetta, Tally, that you have against the police that is now spilling over into public service. And it's completely out of place. It's causing problems for all of us, and it's causing problems for the work of our city getting done. I was also very disgusted and very disappointed when I saw what was going on with the protest on Sunday, but I was disgusted because of the protest. People are welcome to have free speech, but I stand with the police and them protecting the neighborhood. I feel safe because of the police, and I have lived here for a long time, long enough to know the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Next, Paula.
Next, we have Kim Steinblick.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Kim. Appreciate it.
Hi, I am a Cottonwood Heights resident and I live in District 3, and I actually live on 6710 South where the protest happened. I am grateful for the police department and for their presence there. We, especially around my house and where I live, there are lots of little kids and young kids. And I was grateful that it stopped before it got to my house. The music that I heard playing was a rap song that was bleep you police. I mean, it was not, it was very there was a lot of profanity in it, and it was targeted at the police. And the chanting up at the park was bleep you racist, which didn't sound too peaceful to me. I want to applaud the police department for being there and stopping it before my children were exposed to that. And I agree that the protest up at Mill Hollow Park did start out as peaceful when they were there just giving speeches and stuff. But I am grateful it did not make it all the way to my house and it was stopped before then. I also want to thank the police department, in particular Officer Potter, who does the DARE program in the schools that my kids love. Every time they see him, they're like, Officer Potter, and they wave at him. Just a few months ago, I think it was Officer Wong was doing a speeding patrol and visited with my kids and was very friendly. And I feel very safe with our police department. I would like to echo what Bodie Bothorpe said and also what Christy Morrison said. I support the police department and I'm very grateful for your presence and I feel safe with them around. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Next, Paula.
Here, next we have Val Fuller.
Hello. Your law enforcement officers responded in an extremely over-militarized fashion at a peaceful protest on Sunday. I am confused, angry, as to why your response was so aggressive. Instead of allowing a group of unarmed and peaceful protesters to march and dance for justice through the quiet streets of Cottonwood Heights, we were stopped, kettled, and harassed by your police chief. Your law enforcement officers did not intend to allow a peaceful protest from the beginning. Their intention was to shut it down and instigate violence. The march was stopped within minutes of starting, and law enforcement officers were in full battalion gear, passing out batons and pepper spray. Using misunderstanding and scare tactics, your law enforcement officers started grabbing protesters from behind who were not directly on the sidewalk and arresting them. They used tasers, repeated blows with batons, pepper spray, and other violent methods to arrest peaceful members of the group. You guys should be extremely embarrassed of how your city decided to handle the peaceful protests in comparison to the other neighborhoods in Salt Lake Valley. I expect you guys to do the following to ensure this level of response never happens again. All of the charges need to be dropped. You need to hold your law enforcement officers responsible for charging felonies to a peaceful protest. You need to fire Chief Russo and other law enforcement officers, including Chris McHughes. You guys need to defund and demilitarize the police and remove the non-lethal weapons that have a 3% fatality rate. You need to train as to what your law enforcement officers, as to what a protest is actually allowed to do. And you guys need to speak out against classifying protests as riots. You need to stop using kettling as a technique to lead to instability and violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Val.
Hey, Mayor. Annette Ellis.
Mr. Ellis?
Annette, you're on.
Go ahead, Mr. Ellis. Okay, Paul, we need to go to the next person and try and get him back on later.
The next person will be, oh, sorry, Alex Pack.
Can you hear me?
Alex, we can hear you.
Yeah, this is her husband, Jeremy. We also live in the neighborhood where this protest took place, and I have noticed many of the protests have mentioned that it's a quiet street, and quite frankly, that's exactly why we moved here, and that's why we spend a lot of time out in the yard with our kids. Sunday afternoon, we had family over for dinner and got a text from a neighbor that they couldn't get home because the street was blocked, and we kind of had no idea what was going on. So brother-in-law and I, who also lives in the neighborhood, went to check. No sooner than we got there, we were called every name in the book without saying a thing. I was like, how do they know we're not with them? But apparently the fact we look the way we do, I guess, we were called white privilege, racist, homophobes. And it was after the rally that we walked through and we saw a wrench laying in the street. We huddled our kids in because it was quite terrifying. And if it was peaceful, I would not have done that. I'm not sure why this had to be organized in a neighborhood. Last night's protest seemed to go fine. I'd have no problem with it up at City Hall. But for Tally Bruce to put this in a neighborhood and put this quiet neighborhood at risk like that is quite appalling. And I know a majority of my neighbors feel the same way, and her time's short. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pack. Paula, next, please.
Next is Troy Rippingler.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Troy, we can hear you.
Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to be here. I greatly appreciate it. So I'm looking at this flyer that somebody gave me. It says the Pub and Grub, you know, the About Time Pub and Grub of Conwood Heights. This is a special thank you from Tally Bruce. If you participate in any protest, support Black Lives Matter, or just a trashy person, just present this page for 2 free meals and 2 free beers. Just know I am a piece of trash just like you. And so having seen this, I'm beginning to wonder, are all these people in support of Tally, are they real, or are they kind of bought and paid for? I mean, what I'm seeing here is, you know, what I'm seeing here is a Saul Alinsky tactic. Saul Alinsky, for those who don't know, is a democratic socialist trained under Frank Nitti, who's Al Capone's #2 guy, wrote a book dedicated to the devil on basically how to overthrow democracy in America. And what do we see? We saw the group breaking the law, baiting the police to get involved, ready to fight. I mean, you're telling me a guy in 100+ degree weather with no rain carrying an umbrella, and that's not a weapon. Why is he carrying an umbrella? So they're playing the victim, cameras on the ready to record, not what led up to it, but only what they wanted people to see, talking points, and of course the media connections ready to distribute it. Tally, you did a really good job on KSL pretending to be the aloof victim. And so, you know, I go back to this. This is just a coordinated, we got to remember what Tally ran for office for, and that was she has a personal vendetta with the police. And when you have that kind of a goal, you need to exploit other people's circumstances, like Zane James. You know, I
Okay,
mean,
Troy, I'm sorry, your time is up, but thank you very much for your comments. Paula, next.
I'm going to try Annette Ellis again. Annette, are you there? Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
We can barely hear you.
Can anyone hear me now?
Now, there you go. We can hear you well. Thank you.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. Good evening. I just wanted to make some commentary. It seems like a lot of the people who are talking on behalf of anti-Black Lives Matter groups, they are kind of claiming this stance of white neighborhood comfort is somehow comparable to Black and marginalized lives being killed and threatened by the police department. These are two uncomparable circumstances. So to claim that your comfort is somehow more important than a movement that stands for the actual lives that are being taken away by the police department just seems a bit comical to me. I would also like to comment on the fact that during the live video of the Sunday protest, there were very threatening comments, people saying that they would like the people who were protesting in remembrance of Zane James and for Black Lives Matter, they would like to meet them with guns and a 12 gauge. There were multiple comments like that. So in order for the Cottonwood Heights Police Department to stand on the side of these anti-Black Lives Matter protesters who were holding guns in a very threatening and intimidating way after these sort of comments were already spoken and available to the public, shows that they were doing a lot more than just having their amendments, their right to bear arms. It was a threat. I thought it was very threatening.
Annette, thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate it.
Next, we have Stephen Isowitz.
Stephen, go ahead.
To the prior Troy Ripplinger's stupid and ridiculous comments, just of record, voters decide who's in office. Tolley was elected, so stop the crap. A bunch of voters were fed up with the lack of transparency in the government. Tolley was who we elected. Move on. To your honor, Mayor, members of council, Mr. Tingy, everyone, first, I do want to thank you for all your service. My thoughts and best wishes are with you to make sound decisions for our city, the residents and families, particularly during these tumultuous times. Obviously, we don't live in a perfect world. With that, there's many difficult decisions for you to lead our city through. Not always ones that myself or other citizens are happy with, but I want to let you know that my family and I feel very ashamed and embarrassed to be part of this city after seeing what happened over the last 2 days and the decisions made by our police force, and I hope you do too. I think I won't get into details. I'll submit a letter. Hopefully you'll have the time to read it in the interest of time. I think it's pretty clear that the rally that occurred on Sunday and some of the more violent protests which occurred closely following George Floyd's death are very different, and our police force knows that. I think that we have a group of people protesting or rallying very peacefully at first was met head on with something that not everybody wants to see, and that's just a very stark police force meeting them and trying to order them onto sidewalks, understanding that they shouldn't have been in the street, but different tactics probably would have helped to de-escalate the situation, have them move on, and all be over. Monday night's fiasco is a much different story. I realize I'm almost out of time, but I'll just say my wife and kids were at soccer and at the skate park, very scared with what was going on. Men in trucks, with heavily armed. I do know the Utah's open carry and conceal laws very well on school property. License plates removed from vehicles, yet our police force did nothing for any of those fellows.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate your comments.
Mayor, next is Brandon Dodge.
Hello, can you hear me?
Brandon, go ahead.
Hello. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the time. I'd like to also express my my sincere thoughts and appreciation for all the men and women that are in law enforcement, as well as all of you gentlemen and ladies sitting there in the city council office. You have a very difficult job. I'd like to express my disappointment with all of us. We are all doing the wrong thing. We're choosing sides, one side or the other. There's no in between. Nobody wants an in between. I think we need to think carefully. We need to look within ourselves. We need to think, what are we really trying to accomplish here? You know, I believe in the rights of the First Amendment. I believe in the Second Amendment. But I saw a stark contrast between what happened on Sunday and what happened on Monday. I think we should learn from lessons. If people want to practice their Second Amendment rights, we should allow them. If they want to practice their First Amendment rights, we should allow them. We should make our efforts to let those protests go on. Maybe we close the streets, maybe we let them go through. My real disappointment is now we're going to have parties from both sides. We're going to have the far rights and the far lefts. We're inviting disaster into our city by choice. We need to come together. We need to come to resolution. Both sides need to stop pointing fingers. Think about what we can do to make this better. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon. Okay. Next, we have Kathy Jensen.
Kathy, go ahead. Are you there, Kathy? Kathy, are you there?
Oh,
There you are. We hear you. We can hear you now. Go ahead,
Okay.
Kathy.
sorry. Yeah, first I'd just like to say that I appreciate our police force and that every interaction I've ever had with them has been wonderful, and especially with Chief Russo. And I agree with the last speaker who talked about that we need to come together in the middle. I think that a council person should take the role of bringing sides together to talk about things and work things out, instead of bringing people from outside and having a protest. I wasn't at any of those protests, and I don't live on the street. But I know as a medical person that when groups of people are together, then a crowd will often do things that no individual would ever do on their own in a negative way. And I think that it's always a keg waiting to explode on both sides. I think it's important that our police have training to learn how to diffuse situations, that we have a clear process in our city that if people want to have a protest, let them apply for a permit, let them be where they need to be, as long as they follow certain rules. But this us and them is just so negative, and it's so difficult that I think we need to start and look at each other as human beings and come together on this to find a solid solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Paula, next.
Yes, sir. Next, we have Megan Skiles.
Megan, finally. Are you there, Megan?
I'm here.
Well,
I'm here. Can you guys hear me all right?
Oh, finally. Thank you. I know we've tried several times to get you on. Please go ahead. You have 90
I
seconds.
appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. First, I want to thank Mayor Pedersen and the Cottonwood Heights Council for encouraging public comments. I know you guys are probably getting a lot tonight, but I think it's really important. And personally, I actually think that making people feel heard and giving them a voice in many ways is what de-escalated the situation and prevented further violence last night. So first, I want to thank you guys for that. You guys already know my name because I've been trying to get in. I've lived in Cottonwood Heights for 25 of the 35 years of my life. I grew up here, love the people and community as a whole. I think that there are a lot of things the city's doing right, but I do have a legitimate concern with the Cottonwood Heights PD. So I want to use my time to talk about the viral video that's circulating, pointing out that you can very clearly see a police officer physically lift up a female protester 3 times his size and throw her with force onto the ground. Tally was notably upset, and I think many of us were watching, and I just want to say personally, I was grateful for Councilwoman Tally Bruce's instinctual response. I don't really understand any negative feedback there, and honestly, if I was ever in the same situation, I pray that I would have the same courage to respond that way. And I ask that people imagine for a moment if that was their daughter or loved one being thrown onto the ground or being tased over a water bottle. And the way this was handled by grown men and trained police against females, I don't feel was necessary. I think it could have resulted in serious injury, and this would be a huge national story right now. It's my last thing. After this happened, Councilwoman Tali Bruce was attacked, and my question to council is the last thing. Do you think it was because Tali was a legitimate threat or because she was filming and calling out injustice? Thanks for your time. I'll submit the rest written. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Megan. Glad you got on. Next, Paula.
Yes, sir. Jared Amon.
Hello?
Jared Amon, go ahead.
Hi. Thank you so much for the time. I would just like to reiterate what many before me have already said. It is clear that the police did not serve to de-escalate this situation that took place on Sunday. While a small number of protesters could have began conflict with police, the police met the entirety with full escalation against all protesters, including the vast majority that were peaceful. The job of the police department is not to meet violence with greater violence, and it is definitely not to meet peace with violence, like the CHPD exemplified on Sunday. It is to meet violence with de-escalation to restore peace in the community, instead of fueling the fire. There's a difference between de-escalation against violent protesters and this massive overreaction our community witnessed. Furthermore, and this is even more concerning about the police department, as evident from what we saw yesterday, the CHPD exhibits a clear double standard where armed militias are able to roam the streets with no police resistance, while the police brutalize and terrorize protesters, of which, again, the vast majority are peaceful. I echo the calls of others made throughout this meeting for police reform and reallocation of funds to benefit the welfare of the community instead. I also call for charges against arrested protesters to be released and all related property to be unimpounded, since these charges were made as a part of this overreaction. We can have a police department that serves us and keeps us safe, but as we've seen on Sunday and yesterday, we definitely have a long way to go. I yield my time.
Thank you, Jared. Appreciate your comments. Paula, next.
I don't have anyone else.
Okay, let's wait a minute and see if someone who has signed up has.
Someone raised their hand here. Oh, let me find them. Where is? Whoever was trying to raise, okay, Larry Turner is trying to raise their hand, but they keep, okay, let's see if I can, did I get him?
Larry, we're trying to get you on.
Yes, can you hear me?
Larry, you're on. Go right ahead. Nice
Okay.
picture.
I'd like to say the protesters, and many who were not from our community, you know, we were blindsided by a peaceful town, our peaceful town creating fear and disrupting our serene Sunday on August the 3rd, 2020. Many Cottonwood Heights neighbors called the police department fearing for their family members and homes. And when this ragtag, noisy horde of vulgarity was marching in the streets, disrupting traffic, and the fear about marchers carrying guns, the police warned the large crowd of marchers to clear the streets and use the sidewalks or be arrested. Without warning, the disrespecting violators brutally attacked the police. One officer severely choked, another received a broken nose, and others receiving injuries that were not listed. These disruptive protesters decided to take over our peaceful community. They did not abide by our laws for the use of our streets and started a riot with the police. He selfishly ignored all decency and respect for our community. Our beautiful city will stand together against these people who don't respect our laws and our. I want you to know that I and others that I know support the local police. They are the ones who keep us safe. We also want to congratulate all the hard work that has been done by the police force and the leadership you've had there. I personally have had the police help me in 2 or 3 things that have been great. I want you to know that I will not put up with this evil, and I hope that we'll put an end to this un-American scourge that's going through our country and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Paula, next.
Stephen Wall. Stephen Wall already spoke, didn't he? Or is this a different Wall?
It was a different. We got a different Wall.
Stephen Wall.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Stephen.
All right. To a person, Tally, every person who lived in this area has come out and against the crowd. This was not a joyful, peaceful, dancing crowd. If they were, Arthur Miller's got some work to do. We came out to an incredible amount of noise, immediate vulgarity. We stood on our porch. We didn't say a thing. You were like a gadfly, flitting around with a camera. You look like a Disneyland mom with her fanny pack, going down, wading into the crowd. And then, of course, I understand there's an assault. We could see down there. I could hear a lot of screaming. And then you come bebopping up the street, looking at us, and you say, oh, isn't this wonderful that we have this neighborhood awareness? Now, this is somebody that just got hit in the throat and thrown to the ground. And then I see a video of you in your car blubbering into the phone, saying that you got hit in the throat. Well, when you went by us, I couldn't, if that's how you look when you get hit in the throat, boy, I can only hope that I fare that well. Nothing of the sort happened. You lied. You got to that crowd. You were standing on my lawn. The police came around the corner at the top of the hill. They were respectfully on their speakerphone saying, please get on the sidewalks. And these idiots that keep saying there's no room on the sidewalks, it just means your line has to be a little longer. There were sidewalks on both sides. You could have fit. This was contrived, and it was a nightmare. We had a neighbor across the street who they just brought home a baby. They were traumatized by this. People have an expectation in their neighborhoods, their residential neighborhoods, to be safe. You do not bring a bunch of rabble into a residential area. Total incompetence, Miss Bruce, total incompetence.
Mr. Wall, thank you very much. I'm sorry to cut you off. It's the 90-second rule. Appreciate it.
I have Holly Uphold.
Is it Holly? Is that who you said? I don't see them. Polly, you want to go next?
Justin Steers.
Justin, are you there? Oh,
can you hear me?
Yep, Justin, you're there. Thank you. Justin Steers, yes.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm sure this is not planning on doing at the end of the summer. I have a letter that I would like to send to you guys because I think 90 seconds doesn't do any of this justice.
Yeah, please send that tomorrow before.
Yes, I will. I would just like to say, I think, there are a lot of people that are on here going back and forth about what did happen or didn't happen. And I think that just shows how important it is that we have an independent investigation. There were cell phones and video all over the place. Hopefully there's video from the police department as well. We should find out the truth of what happened. Clearly this was an event that is going to change our community forever. And I just wanted to let you know how much it's affected our lives already. I had children yesterday who were planning on going to soccer, who were afraid to go because of the people with guns in our community. And I think that we need to recognize that our children are afraid to play soccer in our community and recognize we need to take this seriously. And with that, I yield my time. Thank you.
Justin, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Paul, the next person.
I have Tim Knapp.
Hello, and thank you for letting me participate in this discussion. First of all, I'd like to rescind my second of all, what I'd like to say at this point is that I echo the comments by Brandon Dodge that at this point we need to figure out a way to come together. With that being said, I invite Ms. Morrison and anybody else who may have thought that Ms. Bruce was not punched in the face is to please contact her and ask her to give you proof. I think she sought medical attention soon after that. She may very well have proof for you that she was actually punched in the face. Second of all, the protesters, I do not believe were imported. Some of the people were invited by the people who were putting on the rally. Third of all, and most importantly, is if the police would have arrived and talked to the protesters and given them literally 10 minutes and blocked the streets off for 10 minutes, the protest would have gone by, it would have finished, it would have all been incredibly peaceful, and all of the music would have been joyful. All of the music would have been the music that a family or a baby would have liked to have heard. That's all I have to say. My time is up.
Thank you, Tim. Paula, next.
Holly Uphold.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Holly, go right ahead.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I was having a hard time finding unmuting my computer. So I watched the live video of the protest and I saw many disturbing actions perpetrated by the Cottonwood Heights police during this protest. But as I was watching the video, I was trying to remain neutral. And I was really trying to see, I was looking for actions or words that would indicate motivations from both sides. And one thing that I was really disturbed by, and I think maybe speaks to the culture of the police department, was some of the clothing options that the police officers had chosen. One officer was wearing a shirt that said, "America, the greatest country on earth." And to me, that would be antagonistic towards the protesters. I don't know why that police officer chose to wear that shirt. I was also disturbed by the face mask that one of the police officers was wearing with a evil clown grin on it. And I thought, how is that going to de-escalate a situation or a conversation with a protester who is upset? And so I don't know, again, like I wasn't there, but I think that some of those actions might speak to the culture that's within the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. And that's all I have. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Holly. Paula, next.
I don't have anyone else.
Just wait a minute. I know we've got close to 100 people online with us. We'll give them a couple minutes. Then if we don't have more, we'll move on with our agenda. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Please raise your hand via the Zoom process for Paula to recognize you. Anyone else, Paula?
Yes, there's one person here that raised their hand. I'm trying to locate him. Oh, there we go. No, this is Ed Schwartz. He already spoke.
Yep, no, they get one opportunity. Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't see anyone else.
We move on. All right. Hearing that there is no more people who have chosen to speak at this time, first of all, my apologies to anyone who tried to get in and couldn't because of the Zoom restrictions on numbers. That was news to me. We were not aware of that as a city. And we'll try and get that corrected for our next meeting. Appreciate the comments. I apologize again if I cut anybody off. I tried to wait in between a thought and gave everybody an extra few seconds after 9 seconds. So with that being said, we'll now move on with a staff report by our finance director. Scott, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Okay, just going to share my screen. So this is a page out of our adopted budget packet that we did on June 16th. When we adopted our budget, our adopted budget and sales tax, as I'm highlighting right there in the middle of the page, was for sales taxes was $6,350,000, and we had changed that projection to $6,300,000 based on early indications of what we thought may happen with the slowdown in the economy due to the COVID-19 situation that we're still living in. As you progress down through, I'm just going to quickly run down to the last page here, that led to a projected ending fund balance of $3,850,000 for that year. Outside of the sales tax projection, I'm not seeing anything that's drastically different. There will be slight differences, but I'm not seeing anything that's drastically different from this projection. And I'm going to go into a different presentation on sales tax so you can kind of see what we're seeing in terms of sales tax. So we received our January sales tax information on March 24th. So at March 24th, our actual sales taxes that we had collected was $3,969,000. The prior year was $3,692,000 at that same period. Our full prior year was just under $6,350,000. And we had set our budget at $6,350,000 a few months before we had the final numbers for 2018-2019. We were worried that we were going to see reductions, even though we were ahead, about $276,000 from the prior year, $271,000 compared to our budget. We were worried that that was going to evaporate and go away from us at that point in time, not knowing, what the future would bring. Moving down here to the next page, we then, on about April 8th, we started to put together a projection. We utilized some projection materials that Salt Lake County had. We had participated in several economic updates from several organizations. There was not a lot of good, solid information out at the time, but we kind of looked back to the recession that we had from 2008 to about 2011. It lasted for about a 3-year period there to try and glean some information off of that and determine how we were going to be impacted. And so we knew we were good at this point. That was going to be the same. February, we didn't figure was going to be a lot different. Our prior year was $475,000. So we projected $480,000. But going into the next several months, we knew we were going to have some slowdowns, with March being a slight slowdown because of some of the panic buying that we had, and then some slowdowns in April, May, and June were projected. So between February and March, there's a combination of about $20,000 between those two reductions that we projected, and then about $100,000 a month in each of the months of April, May, and June. And that was as close as we could guess in terms of what was going to happen. It put our projected revenue at about $6,300,000 when our budget was $6,350,000, and our prior year was just under that at $6,341,000. We thought that was at least a reasonable estimate of where we would be for the end of the year. So continuing on, the first month that we got was February. February came in at $450,000. The prior year was $475,000, and $476,000 was our budget. So we were down a little bit there. We weren't alarmed with this because there are fluctuations month to month. Sometimes individuals file late or earlier, or sometimes both, between various businesses. And so it does affect month to month. You don't always get consistent month to month filings. You really need to look over a period of multiple months. And so this wasn't drastically concerning to us at this point in time, but it went down a little bit from what our projection was. Moving into March, March saw us collect $606,000. The prior year we had $523,000. Our budget was $524,000. So this put us $82,000 better than either the prior year or our budget, and happened to be the highest March that we had collected ever. So again, we were kind of scratching our heads, not sure why that occurred, saying, well, maybe the panic buying, impacted this greatly as we were going through. Moving down, when we finally got our April numbers, and noticed that this was on June 22nd when we finally got this, came in at $504,000. The prior year actual was just under $500,000. Our budget was just under $500,000. So we beat our budget and actual by about 10,000 each, but we beat our projection by over 100,000, about 105,000. And by the way, back in March, we beat our projection by over 100,000. And so this perplexed us a lot because in April, if you recall, there was a widespread shutdown at that point in time. Many of the people working in the city were working from home. Many of the people who were working in other places weren't working and things, and this really perplexed us and everything. We weren't sure why that occurred. Moving forward, we come here to May, which we just got on July 21st, just a few weeks ago. We received $525,000 on projections and our budget and actual from the prior year of about, $505,000, a projection of $400,000. So we're $125,000 better than our projection and about $20,000 better than the prior year. We don't yet have our numbers for June, so that's a blank at this point in time. But at this point in time, with our current collection being $6,056,000, we're only, if we wanted to get to our budget, we only need just under $300,000, and to get to our projection, we only need just under $250,000. We have not received less than, I think that 450 there was one of our lowest months ever. And I think there was another month in the last 3 years that was like $440-some thousand. Typically, June is a pretty good month. The year before this, instead of 650,000, we had received about 550,000. The average of all these months that we've collected so far is about 550,000. So if we were to receive 550,000 in this particular month, it would bump us to the point where we are about 250,000 above our budgeted number of $350,000 and well over our projected number. We don't know what we'll receive at this point in time. That's still about, roughly 3 weeks out when we'll get that information, maybe 2.5 weeks out. So unfortunately, we probably won't have that information at our next meeting. However, I just kind of did some really quick math on some of this, and this is pure speculation on my part, so it has no scientific basis in it. But our 2018-2019 actual was $341,000. Our current year budget is $6,350,000. Our actual through June 21st, which is 11 months worth of data, is $6,056,000. If we collected the average of, what we collected in those 11 months, it would be $550,000, which would take us to about $6,600,000 area. That's about $256,000 over our budget. So going back to where we said we would land our budget, it would probably be in the realm of $250,000 higher than what we have projected our ending fund balance to be. And then looking at our current year budget for sales taxes was adopted at $5,750,000, which incorporates about a $600,000 reduction from this budget that's over here. But based on information that I'm seeing here, I think that's way too conservative. We're probably going to receive more than that. If we received exactly what we've received in, what we're projected to receive for the current or our past year in the current year, that could be as much as $850,000 more than what we have budgeted. Those two numbers, 256,000, about $1.1 million. I'm not saying that we're going to receive a net between those 2 years of $1.1 million more, but I would dare say we're going to see a slight bit more than not seeing that money. We're probably closer to seeing, in the realm of $1 million net impact positive to our fund balance by the end of the current budget year that we're in. I'm talking June of 2021, if things continue to go like they are. Now, there's a lot of variables in there that I have no insight to. and could change at any time, but it's something that you need to be aware of. And I think we need to continue to watch and monitor this over the course of several months to try and see what the trends continue to do. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of growth going out into the future, but I also don't know that there's going to be a lot of erosion from where our current base is. So that's kind of where we sit in terms of our sales taxes. And that's the most volatile revenue that we have, especially when the economy fluctuates.
Scott, two questions real quickly. One, is there any way we track the increase of online purchasing? Does that directly impact our sales tax?
Yeah, it can definitely impact our sales tax. When online purchasing, any purchasing where there's sales taxes collected on it, any of that type of purchasing will have a positive impact in our collections. And that is one of the areas. I remember we had a training that was done by the State Tax Commission of the state of Utah, where he went over some of the details. And one of the details that he mentioned in that training was that online sales were definitely up.
Scott, I have a quick, oh, go ahead, Mayor.
No, again, and one question, I'll turn it over to Doug. But I also understand that one of our greatest sources of sales tax, or one of the highest percentage, is from grocery stores. And I assume even during the pandemic, people still want to eat. And so hopefully that has been a good thing for our city, because the number of grocery stores we have, even though we're losing one, which is me. But I imagine that grocery stores is a big stabilizing force for us.
It is, and about just slightly less than 50% of our sales tax comes from point of sale within our city, and the remaining amount comes from outside of the city. I believe it was like 53 and 47%, if I remember, from our prior fiscal year. But at any rate, what we were concerned about is the other areas of the state seeing negative impacts to sales taxes that would potentially drive down the overall share that we get. That hasn't really occurred. I think that the presenter from the state mentioned that basically if you didn't have a snow skiing resort in your sales tax collection area, you didn't see a huge reduction. You might have seen a minor reduction, but pretty much everybody throughout the state was up. Well over 80% of the state was up. And some who were down were just down in minuscule amounts, but near prior year amounts and stuff. And then the ones who weren't were areas that had snow ski resorts in their collection boundaries.
All right, thank you. And we'll let you finish in a minute, Scott. I don't mean, but Doug, you had a comment.
Scott, just a real quick question. How are these itemized out? Do we get a very clear picture of, obviously this is wonderful news, especially when our projections were starting out, they were pretty dire, but how are they itemized out, and how will that, could that, obviously I think we're going to do better on the numbers in the numbers coming in than what we projected, but do we have a clear picture of where those numbers are coming from?
To a degree, yes. We do get good information, especially on the local sales. We get really good information, statewide, because there's the local aspect where 50% of our sales comes from the local sales. The remaining 50% comes from the statewide sales as it relates back in. And so as the state goes, we get a little less direct picture on, but on the local sales, we do get good information on. It's not information that's totally publicly available, but there is things that I can gather and present to you if you have specific questions on it. But I don't know exactly what it is you're looking for, if you're looking for something specific.
My question was, I know a certain number of businesses closed down, but we obviously made up the difference, and it could be food, it could be online, myriad of things, but that's wonderful news. Yeah. It would be nice to be able to help us in future predictions,
Yeah, in a general sense, food and online were way up. Clothing was down. Restaurants are obviously down right now still. There's some recovery in that area, but not as much. There are certain, especially if you're in hotel room tax is way down. We don't have a lot of hotels in our city. That doesn't impact us greatly when there is a fluctuation there, but that is definitely affecting those businesses. They group them into industry groups, and I can look at that and maybe bring some more information about some of that at our next meeting.
So, Mayor, if I may say, some of that, we can bring some detail, but some of it we're required to keep confidential, which is an issue that we have. The state requires that on some of these things, so keep that in mind.
I remember that. Thank you. Scott, go ahead. Do you have further presentation? Yeah.
No, that's the last page that I have there. So that's
okay.
Kind of
terrific.
He was
Great
just making
news.
it all good, happy news, and then he was going to leave.
Yeah. Any further questions of Scott? Excellent news, and that's very positive.
Mayor, if I may just say, we want to take some time and evaluate this and continue to bring it to you, and continue to watch the projections. We will do that. There are some things that we want to talk about, obviously, based on our budget process, the market study being one for compensation. We're not ready at this point to even bring that conversation to you, but as we continue to watch this, it's something that we'll want to look at and eventually bring to you, as well as other projects if it looks like the revenues are maintaining. So I just want to say that.
Yeah, we discussed that with our committee, that these numbers were really down, and we really needed to see where they were going to go before we made any solid decisions. But we're looking at a January 1 date for any potential changes.
Well, we appreciate that, and I think that's a good reminder that through the budget process, we put in a hiring freeze. I know we have 4 or 5 vacant positions, so that will be something we want to discuss going forward about the timing of replacements, make a commitment to employees that as we get close to the first of the year, and obviously before, to have these numbers to give us some guidance. So yeah, I agree with that. So Scott, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Mayor, also, we may want to bring the discussion about the hiring freeze and other things to you sooner than January.
That was my point. Yes. Thank you. Now, looking at the agenda, before we move into the action item, I do want to give the council just a minute. I want to make sure we had enough time to do other things. If you have any personal comments following the public comment period, no, we don't need any more comments if you don't want to, but if somebody felt they really wanted to take a moment themselves as an elected official for the district and make a comment, I want to give you that opportunity. Is there anyone who would like to comment from the public comments? As you think about that, just a reminder that the reason we don't respond to each individual comment because we don't have time for a dialogue. If there's someone who asks for a specific response, Tim tracks that and does reach out to those individuals. Hopefully we'll have comments that will be submitted in writing. They will also be on the public record and sent out to the council for your review as well. Hearing nothing further from the council at this time, we have one action item, and then we do have a closed session that will be continued for the purpose of discussion of pending litigation. The action item is Resolution 2020-36. It's approving entry into a federal aid agreement for local agency project with Utah Department of Transportation up on Wasatch Boulevard. Mr. Shipp, you want to introduce that quickly again for us?
Yeah, Mayor, this is once again it's off Wasatch Boulevard, about 7300. This property belongs to the county. It's part of our agreement with the county to from years ago to develop this property into a park area with parking and trailhead and various sundry items. So this is what we're moving forward with. What you have in front of you tonight is not necessarily a design. What you have in front of you tonight is accepting the federal aid money that is being brought to the table for this, or the FAA, which is about $1.3 million. Of that, we have a match of 6.77%, which has been budgeted. And we are ready to move forward with that. We have the environmental, which we have started, and we'll get that completed. Once that's done, this agreement gives us the ability or the right to start expending those funds on this project.
Any questions of Scott regarding this resolution? Scott, I called you Scott. Sorry, Matt.
It's all right. I've been called work.
I'm multitasking here.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate the comment.
You're welcome.
But I would move that we approve resolution 2020-36.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bracken. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Peterson. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, I would call for the vote. Councilmember Bruce.
Yes.
Councilmember Michael.
Yes.
Councilmember Bracken.
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Thank you, everyone, on that. We do have a consent calendar item, which is the minutes for July 7th, 2020. I'd entertain a motion to approve that consent calendar.
Just a quick question. Paula, there was a couple of changes that we made to my comments, and you'd said you'd updated those, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, according to Paula, those are updated. So entertain a
I move
motion.
we update or we approve the consent calendar.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bracken to approve the consent calendar. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I think my yellow light says Councilman Peterson was first.
Sorry.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
More importantly, does anybody say no? Hearing none, it's unanimous. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the business meeting and move into a closed session for the purpose of discussion of pending litigation.
Mayor, may I just make a comment before we vote on that? On this closed meeting, I believe Paula just sent everyone the link because it's a different link now to this closed meeting. So I just want to make sure I think it's in your email is where you will go to it. I just want to make sure you are aware of that.
Is it an email or an invite?
I might be in it. Well, it's an email, but it comes in as an invite.
It's a calendar invite.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you can go to your calendar and it's real easy. Okay.
Yeah, so it was emailed, so make sure you go there. That I just want to make sure it was clear, and we'll work with you if you're having a hard time getting in.
All right, before we take that final vote then, or entertain that motion again, Riley, we appreciate you joining us tonight. I know we haven't heard from you and appreciate your patience, and everyone else who stayed with us tonight. I know there's still about 50 of them still listening. So I appreciate people's patience and participation and trying to be transparent, trying to give everybody an opportunity to speak. But we'll move on now, and I'll entertain that motion to adjourn to a closed session.
Okay, and Tim,
Mayor,
if you would,
Go ahead, sorry.
Mayor, I just wonder, for those who are still sitting on the phone or in the Zoom call listening, who may not have been listening to our 5 o'clock meeting, would it be useful for Tim to share the steps that we're going to be taking over the next few months? Because there were a lot of comments that were made about Sunday's events, and I feel like at some point we should share if people weren't able to hear that at 5.
I think that's fine. I think that's what we talked about, comments after the public comments. So I think that's tied to that, to provide a little clarity. And so Tim, just take a minute, maybe restate about the process we'll go for the evaluation internally and for the outside participation.
Yeah, we're doing an evaluation on the incident that occurred near Mill Hollow Park on Sunday. It includes the criminal allegations and evaluation of the criminal proceedings. We're having an independent review from prosecutors from outside agencies. Look at that. They'll be evaluating that and going through that process. It'll take some time with them to do that. We will also be conducting an internal investigation as we do with these incidents. It will include a review and report, and then we're going to have an outside review by the Attorney General's office, an outside review of the incident, and get their evaluation of that. Those are the 3 steps. It is going to take some time. We'll work to get more information to the council on the estimated timing on that. But that is the process that we're going to go through.
Thank you. And the emphasis there too is that we'll get more information to the council as we move forward. It's been just 48 hours, but we want to move quickly. And again, just from my perspective, what happened Sunday is unfortunate, disappointing. Hopefully we don't ever have to go through that again. I used yesterday or last night as a good example of discretion by our police and discretion by both groups who were here and attended, and hopefully we can use that as a model going forward. And also, as a city council, we'll continue to meet in future meetings and review policies and trainings, and what best practices are, we'll look at what Salt Lake City did. We'll look at what the Utah League is proposing. I understand the legislature's got some things. All that stuff's to come into a play, which hopefully will just make it better for everyone involved and who has concerns. So with that, again, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the business meeting and move into the closed session to discuss pending litigation. Scott, you're the master at this motion.
If anyone else will take it up, Doug. All right, well, I move that we adjourn our business session and reconvene in a work session and then close meeting for the discussion or for the purpose of discussing pending litigation.
It's been moved by Councilman Bracken. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Michael. Any further questions? Then I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Bracken.
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
I'm off screen. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, I say vote yes.
Yes. Councilmember Michael.
Yes.
And Councilmember Bruce.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Thank you, everyone. We'll adjourn now, and I'll see you on the other side in the closed session in 5 minutes.
Thank you.